Hi, I'm Benjamin, and I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since high school. Over the years, my experience has expanded to include systems such as GURPS, Dark Heresy, and Shadowrun. Now, I'm here to make my experience available to you and help you make your games as much fun as possible. So, starting at the beginning, what is a tabletop role-playing game? While that varies a great deal in specifics, the general concept is that it's a group of friends who get together, either physically or online, and tell a story together. This usually, but not always, includes some form of organizing system to ensure fairness and uncertainty of outcome, generally through the use of dice. The most common structure is to have a storyteller, often called the Game Master or Dungeon Master, along with up to 6 players. More than that tends to get a bit unwieldy. The role of the Game Master is to create the world and the plotline of the game, though some forms of game dispense with the plotline entirely in order to create an open sandbox experience for players to explore. The role of players is to interact with the world the Game Master creates through a single avatar within that world called a character. The nature of the character varies depending on the system and the type of game, being anything from a survivor in a zombie apocalypse to a dwarf warrior searching dungeons for treasure to a superhero saving the world from evil alien invaders. The player's characters form a group, often known as a party, who work together to overcome obstacles and accomplish common goals. Now that we have the basic concept established, the question becomes why? And the answer to that is simple. Fun. Role-playing games are a fantastic way to hang out with friends and relatives and have fun. Laugh at funny outcomes and jokes and generally socialize. It also helps to keep the mind active, encouraging outside-the-box thinking and social interactions. At the time of this first episode, much of the world is currently in lockdown and looking for something to do, so there has literally never been a better time to try it out. Role-playing games tend to have plenty of free sample rules, often called light rules, along with sample adventures to play them with. I'm going to link a few options in the show notes so you can try stuff out before deciding whether or not to spend money on this. Beyond that, there are a few things you'll need in order to get started, which will depend on what kind of game you want to play. There are several ways to play tabletop role-playing games online. The slowest, requiring the least active time commitment, is play-by-post. Play-by-post games are games that are played on a message board online, such as the Piazza Publishing forums or the RPG.net forums. These games can move at a glacial pace, with one superheroes game I ran advancing 2 in-game weeks over almost 4 years of play, but also allow for thought-out answers and detailed character speeches in a way that other forms of game don't. I'll do a follow-up video about this type of game at a later date. The second type of game is over a text-based messenger service such as Discord. These games are faster paced than play-by-post, but retain the anonymity of a text chat system, which can potentially help maintain immersion by keeping out-of-character chatter in a separate channel. The primary flaws of this setup tend to be speed, as a slow typer will slow the game down for everyone, and a certain detachment inherent in text-based games. Much like text-based computer games are less immersive than more modern real-time games, text-based RPGs are often less directly engaging than live. The third way to play is through the theatre of the mind, using an audio messaging service such as Discord, Skype, or even a conference call. Much like text-based gaming, this is in real time, but unlike text-based games, this version relies on everyone's voices. This can be a benefit, as it allows everyone to react quickly, or a drawback, as there isn't a separate out-of-character chat. It is generally recommended to use an online dice rolling service to ensure rolls are not being fudged, aka lied about. Naturally, this requires everyone involved to have a microphone and possibly a webcam. I highly recommend some form of headset for this setup to reduce the risk of audio interference too. Finally, there is the use of a virtual tabletop such as Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. This setup requires more work for the game master and has a higher likelihood of technical difficulties, but on the flip side tends to have the best results when done correctly. Again, microphones are recommended here. I recommend Roll20 as a good starting point, as it is free to create an account, and if you're short of players, you can use their system to advertise your game for others on the system, or just join someone else's game if you want to play and get a feel for things rather than run the game. So you have a group. You've worked out how you want to play. The next question is, what system should you look at? Well, that is going to depend on what sort of game you want to play and how much you like being detail-oriented. More detailed rules are commonly referred to as crunch, so a system with a complex and detailed rule set is a crunchy rule set. Crunchiness is something to consider when choosing a system, as a crunchy game is going to be a lot harder to just pick up and play, but is going to be more rewarding to a simulationist mindset. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition tends to strike a good balance of being user-friendly and having depth to the rules, and the free basic rules booklet contains enough to get you started and have some fun. It is tailored towards a very specific style of game, high fantasy, but it does that genre very well. Shadowrun is another fairly user-friendly system that has a very specific focus, a futuristic cyberpunk fantasy setting where the players are mercenaries working for whoever will pay them and performing acts of corporate espionage, infiltrating swanky social gatherings, getting involved in epic gunfights with rent-a-cops, and generally living like a blend of a heist movie and an action movie. The other two systems I'm going to highlight here have a much broader scope, being generic systems. These systems can work in practically any setting, but as a result require far more work by the game master to set up and tailor for the specific setting. First up is a fairly rules-light system, the Fate system. Technically this is a pay-what-you-like book rather than a free book, but if you're on a tight budget you can get it for free. Fate has your characters defined by a couple of core attributes that they focus on, rather than getting bogged into details of every little thing they can do, facilitating faster gameplay and a streamlined experience. It's a good system that can be used for anything from high fantasy to modern adventures to science fiction. The last showcase system today is Generic Universal Role-Playing System, or GURPS. Unlike Fate, GURPS spells out every detail of what your character can do and how well they can do it. This level of detail lends itself well to games where resource management is the focus, such as a post-apocalyptic zombie survival game, or a game where players are shipwrecked and need to pool their resources and skills to make it off the island, or to restore power to the spaceship, or whatever. It also makes for good gritty games in any genre, such as low fantasy or science fiction, and is a solid choice for horror games. The light rule set contains everything you need to get started. There's no reason to marry yourself to any one system. Check them all out, see which ones work best for you and your friends, and use whatever is best for the type of game you're wanting to run. Anyway, that's all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more content, and if it's up by now, join my Patreon. Members get custom-rendered art of their characters, monthly one-shot games run by me, and potentially even get to take part in a full long-term campaign. In any case, keep well and have fun.